Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear sisters in Islam, welcome to a new episode of your program, Dear Sisters. Thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us, to forgive us our sins and our bad deeds, inshallah ta'ala. My dear sisters, inshallah, today we're going to be continuing what we talked about last time, which is the issue of raising our children at a young age. So we had talked about the issue of salah, we talked about the issue of zakah, and now inshallah we want to talk about the issue of fasting. And for that I'm joined by Sheikh Ibrahim Zidane. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing this afternoon?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alright, so last time we talked about how we can encourage our children practically from a young age to pray. We also talked about how we can encourage them in different creative ways how to give zakah. And now we want to talk about a very important pillar of Islam, which is fasting. Something that they witness, at a special season of the year, if you may call it, during the month of Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. With fasting, actually, many of us, we don't find any problems when it comes to the children fasting. It's something that they do. Although this is something that it seems difficult for them, but they do it, mashallah, and when they see the family and everybody. And it's something that we talk about it to the children, we do it as actions, we get them used to this on an early age. We follow what the companions radiallahu anhum did, when the women would get their children busy with toys and things like this so that they would forget about food. And it's good for them to feel hungry. I'm not talking about the health benefits, I'm talking about iman-wise, faith. For them to feel that they are not just every time they ask something they would get it. Life is full of tests, and we need to have patience, and we need to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that would develop in them, this attitude of being patient, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no iman, there is no faith for someone that doesn't have patience. So how can we expect the upbringing of our children to be men and women with strong iman if there's no patience in them, in their lives? Many of the people, I'm not talking about Western society only, but we're living in a time when everybody is just being spoiled. So many abundance in anything, in everything.
Yes.
Right? And this is the lifestyle that everybody wants and consuming and so on. The acts of worship would bring the Muslim back on track when it comes to matter of patience and being strong and seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And definitely the issue is that brings everybody together is the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are nothing but slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khairan. We'll talk specifically about fasting. How early should we begin with the children? I mean, are we talking about like 3 or 4 years old, or are we talking more about 10 or 12?
Of course, Ramadan, when it comes, the whole family would get to know, once they comprehend things, even when they're 4 years old or something like this, they're aware that this is Ramadan, we stop eating, we fast the whole day, and we train them. Of course, they won't have to fast when they're that young, but we would delay the food for them as much as we can, and we get them busy with things to be done. But 7 years old is definitely an age where they should fast, and unless there's an exception, of course. But they should fast, and something that we do every year, so that once they reach the age of 10 years old or after that, it becomes part of their norm. And even optional fasting, winter time, when it's easy to fast.
Yes.
When the Maghrib is around 5 or 4:30 or something like this, the day is short, giving them a good breakfast at the time of suhoor and dinner. As one of the early generations of Islam, he said, fasting is such an easy thing. Just make your breakfast a little bit earlier and delay your dinner just a little bit, late. So it's easy if you look at it this way. So, something that develops so many different great characteristics in one's life, definitely the children.
Jazakallah khairan. I guess we don't have to talk too much about Hajj, because that's something that you would need to physically go there to do. But at the same time, many of the schools, they kind of replicate Hajj. But for example, if the child is watching television, for example, during the time of Hajj, what kind of messages can a parent implant in his child, and especially the mothers, especially that we know that there's a huge connection between an infant named at that time Ismail alayhi salam, and the story of Mecca and the story of Hajj in general.
Hajj, although this is something that only some people they go every year, but the benefits of it and the things that can be mentioned about Hajj is enormous. The stories behind it, something that can be fascinating to the children, and many benefits that they can learn from that. The story of Ismail alayhi salam, Hagar, Ibrahim alayhi salam, amazing things that happen to show how when the person submit themselves totally to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what the benefits that they can receive. And also when it comes to the actual rituals of Hajj, Hajj is an amazing act of worship that proves to those who go to Hajj and those who learn about Hajj that the deen of Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to submit willingly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you know the wisdom or whether you don't know the wisdom behind things. Why you are in Mina the 8th, the 9th, you're in Arafah the 10th. Why do you do these types of things? It's because the Prophet ﷺ did this. And that's enough for us. You make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from one day to the other in different ways, but this is basically the way of the Prophet ﷺ. So the same thing we have to be, if it's correct to say that, perpetual in everything in our life. Why you do Hajj and you make sure that it's correct in this manner, do the same thing when it comes to the salah, when it comes to fasting, when it comes to charity, when it comes to halal and haram. Not because I want to see the benefit in my life first, and life comes first, and then we will see what the deen says. This is not the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of us. We submit ourselves willingly to everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do, and we talk about that, and we implement that in our life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to raise the children with this type of attitude, submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Inshallah ta'ala. When it comes to sports, I think sports is a very important aspect that we should instill in our children at a young age, both from the Islamic sense and from the physical sense as well. What should we be focusing on when it comes to sports in the 21st century?
Wallahi, there's many responsibilities that we need to do, and it's
like you said last time, you said it's not only a full-time job, it's a 24-hour-a-day job.
Right. And it needs a lot of focus, and with the responsibilities that the parents have, whether it's for the man working and different things that he faces, and for the wife and so on, still we need to be focused on the upbringing of the children according to the way the Prophet ﷺ, and the physical needs that they need, and the emotional needs, and all kinds of things.
Yes.
With the dua, with the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things can be good, inshallah ta'ala. One of which is their physical needs. It's the rights of their body, all for the sake of Allah. Not just for the sake of being, whatever reason is that people would play sports for. We do that for the sake of Allah, so that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the proper way, so that you would gain more rewards, so that you be healthy, so that you can have all means of goodness, so that you be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So making them playing sports that is halal, because some things can make the person commit something that is haram. For example, hitting one's face, even if it's for the purpose of training, this is not permissible in the deen of Islam. Even if it's a sport and people are champions and do all kinds of things, it's not permissible for us to hit anyone's face. This is something that Allah honored and has to be protected. Wearing clothes that is not covering the awrah, men and women intermingling together, this is all not permissible. So doing things in the proper way. And another thing is, which is one of the diseases that are present in the Muslim countries and all over the world, the issue of being intoxicated with sports, being a fan, basically, that can cause a person to even kill, or curses, or all means of sins, just because of a team that a person loves and become a fan. And
yes.
This is all form of sicknesses that are present, that we need to raise our children that play sports. Why do you have to be intoxicated with watching? There's not much benefit in this. It's actually more harm. People get stressed and and becomes the happiness and the sadness and all of that, not because of the deen of Allah, it's because of this club or this club. So playing sports is important, and they need to be busy doing this, not busy watching sports.
Are there specific sports that you recommend that Muslim parents should start with?
There is the famous quote from Umar radiallahu anhu, that to teach your children swimming and الرماية, archery, and riding, horseback riding. These types of things that with the matters of physical need that they would have, and whether it's in the past for the fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or there's some benefits in it too. Even for the horseback riding, if the means are easy, it has something to do also with the personality of the person. It changes the personality of the person. Group sports like soccer, things like this, if it's done in the proper way, without cussing, without being prejudiced to one thing or the other,
without missing salah,
right? Without missing salah, without uncovering one's awra and so on. If it's done in the proper way, this can help many different values of helping one another to do something. Anything, mashallah, with the proper etiquettes. I remember one time in our communities, we would go play soccer, but the two teams are not allowed to speak a word, not even a good word. And it's a way to train them to communicate without screaming. And people will come and watch us and they would think that we're mute.
Subhanallah.
But it has so much
training course.
It was great actually. People learn many different things, and they would even develop certain skills,
yes,
and understand one another with, So it was a very good thing, being creative in something like this. Otherwise, people start fighting and getting angry with each other, and something that definitely has to be avoided.
Can we say, for example, also, can we, like, even at the homes, I was thinking about the same idea of being mute. Can we say that we're going to go for the next hour without saying a word, but we're still going to communicate with each other, all the people in the household, for example?
As long as it's not understood that this is part of the deen or something.
Yeah, it's just a skill, a training.
We don't have in the deen, for example, to be fast from speaking, which is something that nations before maybe had this. But if it's done as a way of training ourselves to think before we speak, because anything we say, it's either going to be against us or for us.
All right, let's focus on the most important thing when it comes to raising children, which is starting with them with the Islamic sciences. Okay, we talked about the pillars of Islam. We talked about general Islamic ethics and Islamic manners. How about putting a curriculum for the Muslim child to learn Islamic sciences? I heard from a teacher who teaches tajweed, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. He says that tajweed, the science of tajweed, is divided in two parts. One is the practical side, and one is the what do you call it? The kind of the what?
The rulings.
The rulings, yeah, the rulings. I mean, the rulings of tajweed. He's talking about the rulings of tajweed. So he says the practical application is one side, and knowing the names, of the certain things is the other side of things. Okay, so what he was saying is that it is an obligation for every single person of the Muslim Ummah, to the best of ability, to know the practical side. Meaning, if you want to read Quran, to read it correctly.
Right.
Okay, that's an obligation on you, fard ayn. Okay, obligation on every single Muslim. But he says the other one is a fard kifaya, which is that only some of the people need to know the science. What is a ghunna, for example, what is qalqala, and all of these things. First of all, is that correct?
The correct opinion, Allahu a'lam, that it's not mandatory, meaning everybody.
Neither.
Right. And everybody, of course, fard kifaya. Some people, of course, have to have this knowledge.
Of course.
But everybody should learn how to recite the Quran, and anyone according to their capacity and capability.
So it's not a fard ayn to learn the tajweed of the Quran.
Right. But it's a waste of life if a person have the means and they don't learn. What's the purpose of our life then? And that's one of the things, is what is the value of the Quran in our life and in the life of the children.
Yes.
And that's why we need this is a big portion of their life, is to raise them to love the Quran. Sometimes we limit it to the issue of memorizing the Quran only. Learning the Arabic language, being able to interact and to understand the Quran, and to react to the verses of the Quran, this is a must. And it's with the different means of making it easy for us. Definitely parents should take the matter serious. Many parents, those who are religious and so on, they just want their children to memorize the Quran. But we need to take it an extra step, to understand the Quran and to love the Quran and to implement the Quran in their life. And that's one of the things that in the dars or in the lecture of tajweed or reciting or memorization of the Quran, The teacher has a big role in this, to make them love the Quran.
Okay, speaking with children, maybe like a 3-year-old child may not know the value of the Quran, may not understand the idea that this is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Should we start with them by memorization, especially that, as you know, like children at a young age are more, for the most part, more capable than adults to memorize. It's easier for them. Should we begin like this? Should we say, okay, I'm going to take my child to a Quran school, maybe when he's like 3 or 4 years old, make him learn how to recite the Quran and how to memorize the Quran. And then as he gets a little bit older, then I'll start teaching him, you know, maybe some of the short surahs and what they mean and what their tafsir is and things like that.
No, there are many ways of teaching the children the Quran, but according, you know, if you ask me, teach them first how to read the Quran, how to recite the Quran. And with the short surahs for them to memorize, make them hear it a lot, like a tape in the home, with Juz Amma. And this is something that has been tried before. Let them hear it over and over again. You will find your child, 4 years old, maybe memorized whole Juz Amma without even having to sit with someone to memorize it with.
Just like songs. You know, you have children's songs, and then they're able to memorize them very easily just by listening to them over and over again.
Always having the child attached to the Quran, listening to the Quran constantly. But the most important thing is for them to know how to recite the Quran. That's why even there are the very well spread ways like the Nuraniyya, for example, how to recite the Quran and the letters and to take it step by step. Once they know how to recite the Quran perfectly with the proper pronunciation, then memorization becomes so easy. You don't have to spend so much time repeating for them. They can just take the verses and they would memorize it on their own. But memorization, it's a very good development even in the upbringing of the children. It's a skill, and the Quran is the best way, of course, to do that. And once they memorize the Quran, and it's easy for them to memorize the whole Quran, then everything else can be easy in their life when it comes to attaining knowledge or means of knowledge. Even when parents would take the children out of school for a year and a half to memorize the Quran, has so much benefit in it. They would never be behind. They would excel, actually.
That's very interesting. And then when it comes to the hadith, for example, okay, from what I understand is that when a person, an adult, wants to learn hadith, they learn something called mustalah al-hadith first, and then they learn like specific hadiths and what their meanings, general meanings are, what some of the fiqh issues that we can get out of them, what some of the Arabic language means. Would that work also with children, or would there be a different strategy when it comes to children? Not being too scientific, but maybe focusing more on memorization and understanding of the hadith.
Of course, it depends on the age of the children and taking them step by step. But early on, they would get to know some of the hadith that very short, few words from the very comprehensive hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And they get to know the meanings of it, the stories mentioned in the Sunnah. The issue of the mustalah, the science of the hadith, and so on, this is something that comes later. When they are, maybe in their teen years or something like this. But early on is just the meanings of the hadith and also to implement in them that this is the Prophet ﷺ speaking and acting, to love the Prophet ﷺ. We have a hadith in all walks of life. So whether it's dealing with the children or as a husband or buying and selling, in any occasion, in any situation, we can refer it back to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is our job as educators, as parents, to get that link between the children and the Prophet ﷺ, always referring things back. So teaching them basically some of the hadith, and that's why, for example, the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, comprehensive hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But sometimes when you start with the Quran, make the Quran is the thing for them to work on, and then other things can come later.
MashaAllah. All right, a very important issue is the issue of stories. All of us love stories, especially children. How can we go in that aspect of stories? And we all love stories, as we said, and make that useful in an Islamic sense to children in order not just to entertain them, even though that is an important aspect, it's a form of halal entertainment, but also to educate them and to leave them with morals.
Sufyan al-Thawri, rahmahullah, he said that stories, qasas, is one of the soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
SubhanAllah.
Because it has a great effect. What a soldier do is that he would defend something, implement something. So the stories have a great effect, and that's why it's mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the best stories, as it's mentioned in the Quran, is the stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have in the Quran. So it also should be part of the curriculum, for children, the stories of the Quran, the stories of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and taking one story after another. And the Quran would teach us how to say even a story. And the stories in the Quran would not tell you anything more than what you need to benefit from the story. The things that you won't need won't be there. So it teaches us how to be precise and how to be effective when we say a story. So teaching them the stories of the Quran, stories of the prophets that are mentioned in the Quran, and Surah Al-Kahf, more than one story, and stories like this. And in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the boy and the king and the sorcerer, and the three those who were in the cave and the stone. And
the life stories of the Sahaba and the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ.
Many things. You can spend years and years. And that's why we don't need any other stories that come with fiction, and sometimes it's lies and would have some values that is not part, actually it's against the values of the Deen of Islam.
Yes.
Teaching them to lie, for example, and things like this.
Or to make fun of adults or older people.
Right. I've seen many things with the stories of the children that are amazing sometimes. Teaching them how to be, aggressive, for example.
Yeah, amazing in a negative sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And the cartoons that the children watch, many of the negative things. Teach them how some of them are always scared because of the monster, this or the,
Yeah, we do need Islamic alternatives, though, I'll be honest with you. And even here to the TV, we suffer from the lack of alternatives when it comes to children's programming, because honestly, it's one of the hardest types of programming to produce. Right. In terms of cost, and at the same time in terms of effort. It takes many people, and someone needs to be very creative, because an adult can sit there for half an hour, for an hour, and listen to people speaking, but a child, especially with the other channels out there, their attention span is not that long.
But see, I might be wrong in what I'm going to say now, but when it comes to reading to the child, and for the imagination of the child to go far away when you read a story to them, is much more benefiting than just giving them the image. The image, that's it. That's what you see, and you can't go beyond that.
That's true.
But when you read the story from the Quran and you explain it to them, you need to keep it this way.
Yeah.
Don't make every story mentioned in the Quran with images. It takes away many of the benefits.
Because it opens up their imagination.
Right. Right, and it brings so much benefits like this.
Yeah.
So, and reading and getting them used to read. Definitely it's time. People are busy nowadays, and we need to give time for the children to raise them.
Jazakallah khairan. I'm going to take a short break, my dear sisters. Inshallah, when we come back, we're going to continue, and we'll take some of the questions that we are receiving from you on Facebook. Stay with us, inshallah.
Sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
In a game of golf, both the caddy and the golfer have the same goal: to get the ball into the hole. Interest-free banking is similar. With a clear view of the fairway, a predefined agreement without shifting targets, things should end up where you want them. Your deposits are safe, and your funds are ethically managed with a transparent and equitable approach to sharing risk and reward. No interest burden means more time to relax without the worry of nasty surprises. Rest assured, our interest is mutual. Jazz Bank, Nigeria's first full-fledged non-interest bank.
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear sisters in Islam, welcome back to your program, Dear Sisters. In this final segment, inshallah, of our program this afternoon, we're going to be taking your questions that you've sent us through Facebook, inshallah. So let me go ahead and ask Sheikh Ibrahim the first question. This is a very interesting question. Sister Zernia, she's saying, why whenever we try to be good in our lives, life becomes more tough? even though we are very close to Allah, still hope for His mercy in every task, and mostly get in troubles. What can I do to be strong always?
No. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Life, as we understand from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is a test, is a trial. So as a result of that, there is the shaitan and the devil. He is working more on those who are trying to be correct and upright. He's not working on those who are in state of forgetfulness. So the more you try to be correct, the more you try to be righteous, the more shaitan will try to take you away from this. So that means you need to be strong, and the plots of shaitan becomes weaker the more you get strong. He is so weak, but facing the believers, those who are truthful and righteous and so on. But why this is happening? To elevate one's level, to expiate one's sins. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith that the أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء, that the most among the people that are tested are the prophets, and then those who comes after them and those who comes after them. We should not praise ourselves. We should not say because we're believers we're going to be tested. We should say because of our sins we are being tested. And this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because tests and trials make you stronger and stronger, and basically cleans all the different even emotions that you would have, to make it all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So when we are hit by a test or a trial, we need to make sure that we witness the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the most wise, and that life has no value to it whatsoever unless we are steadfast on the deen of Islam. Death can come anytime, and if you're still alive, it's a mercy of Allah for you to elevate yourself, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. So we have to be either grateful or being patient. And once we work on ourselves like this and become steadfast and constantly away from being committing sins, you would enjoy everything in your life when the hearts are attached to the hereafter. Instead of, the question in itself might seem that the questioner may be not there yet. It's still in the beginning, because once you develop that in yourself, you would see these tests as a great thing. You don't ask for it, but you enjoy the fact that you are nothing but someone that Allah is having His mercy on you, to be grateful, to be patient, and so on.
Barakallahu feek. Sister Fatma, she's a revert, and she's asking about the property inheritance of a revert. What can she take from her parents? And she says again that she's a revert. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep her on the straight path.
And I guess the parents are non-Muslims.
Yes.
The Prophet ﷺ, he made it clear that once there are difference in religions, then there's no will from one another. But they can, there's no inheritance from one another. But they can write in their will. If they write in their will that you would get this or get that, that's fine. But to inherit with the laws of inheritance, this is only when they are of the same religion. So for the reverts, and something that is widespread in the West, and people usually write a will. And if they just leave something without writing a will, then you don't take anything from that. But if they put it in their will, then that's fine.
Interesting. Yeah. Sister Janice, she says that she has two questions. The first question is, what is the proper wudu for women? And a related question, do we have to wear hijab while doing the ablution?
No. The wudu for women is the wudu for men. There's no difference whatsoever between men and women. And when it comes to the arms, the face, and so on. But maybe the hair, and with the issue of the hijab, the head, wiping the head is the same for men and women. And when we say wiping the head, we mean the head, not the hair. So if a woman has a long hair, she doesn't have to wipe the whole hair, just wiping the head all the way to the back of the head and coming back. If she's wearing hijab, the question, does she have to wear hijab? Of course not. She doesn't have to wear khimar to make wudu. If she's at her home, she makes wudu normally. But if she's outside and she has to make wudu, she doesn't have to take her hijab, especially if she's not, something that is a place that is secure. In that case, she can take her hand under the hijab and to wipe a part of the head, and then the rest she can wipe on top of the khimar, on top of the hijab. So if she's outside, she doesn't have to take it off.
Barakallahu feek. We have a question from a
and
sister.
of course, with wiping over the socks, if with the ruling of it. If it's
The same for men.
right, for the same for men, there's no
Okay.
difference whatsoever.
Barakallahu feek. We have a question from a sister who's saying that if a non-Muslim says to her, Assalamu alaikum, what should her response be?
The Prophet ﷺ, when the Jews would come and say that to the Prophet ﷺ, he would say wa alaykum. So you'd say wa alaykum, right? But if you do not know if the person is a Muslim or non-Muslim, then you do what you normally would do. And sometimes it comes, you get caught off guard. Somebody saying Assalamu alaikum, say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But if you know that they're non-Muslims, you say wa alaikum. Some of the ulama, they would say if you know for sure that they said assalamu alaikum, then you can say wa alaikum assalam.
And there would be no problem.
Right,
Because
no problem.
actually, the sister is specifically saying that she said that to someone, and then they got mad that she said wa alaikum only. They thought that was an insult. So
if she is sure,
and I'm guessing like she lives in a country where maybe half of the population is Muslim, half is non-Muslim, so they do understand each other's cultures.
Right. But at the same time, this is something that is specific to Muslims, and that's why we do not start by the salam.
Yeah.
Right. And
In
that's
this
why
case, she was approached. Someone
Right.
said Assalamu alaikum to her.
if they said for sure assalamu alaikum, then she can say wa alaikum assalam. But again, people, this is actually a form of da'wah. You still be nice, kind, and everything like that, but this is a specific greeting among Muslims, right? So the non-Muslims, they should, in some occasions, understand that there's differences, so that at least would make them think. It's not a way of insult or anything like that. It's just this is unique to be among the Muslims.
A sister is asking if it's allowed for her to go to a beauty shop that's run by non-Muslims.
And I guess assuming that it's all women.
Yes, of course, of course.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
of course, if it has any men or any chances that a man would enter and things like this, then it's not permissible, of course, whatsoever. But if it's only women and there's no sins involved, then I'm not sure exactly from what background, what environment.
If it's a Christian place and maybe they have pictures of what they claim to be Jesus, or crosses and things like that, as a shop, not as a place where they do forms of worship, kind of like as their identity, kind of like if you get in a taxi with someone and they have a cross hanging,
you can do nothing about that basically. So it's there's no actions from you to do unless you can give da'wah and you can talk to the people. But when it comes to the beauty salon and things like this, I'm not really aware of what goes inside. So that's why we say as long as there's no haram involved, you don't witness haram and you approve of it by just sitting there, like for example plucking the eyebrows and things. Many things can happen which is not permissible in our deen, and that's why my advice, if you can do that at home, and people can do something within their own selves, the sisters that can get together do something, it's definitely better to avoid yourself to be exposed to something that is not permissible.
Jazakallah khair. We're getting a lot of questions relating to relationships with non-Muslims, which I think is something that's very encouraging, mashallah.
Right.
Sister Bristi, she's saying, Assalamu alaikum, is it okay to wear a ring which is visible to a non-mahram if you go with the opinion that the face and the hand palms do not need to be covered?
She read the question easy. If this is permissible, still showing any form of beauty is something that is not permissible for women to show to a non-mahram man. So the beauty is to be exclusive for her husband. So ring, anything that has to do with showing any form of beauty should be avoided.
Barakallahu feek. Also, she's saying, can you make dua for a non-Muslim if they're dying or sick? May we ask Allah to guide non-Muslims if they are alive or if they're dead?
If they are alive, definitely. We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their guidance and so on. But once they die, that means we cannot make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. This is mentioned clearly in the Quran.
If they're sick and if maybe they're on their deathbed, can you make dua for them?
Yes, as long as they're alive, you can make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. Even for them not to be sick and so on, with the intentions that they would be guided and they would see the truth and so on. This is absolutely fine. But once they die, and you know that they died in a state of other than the state of Islam, then it's not permissible to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their forgiveness and so on.
I know a brother who was given a khutbah once, and then he made a famous dua that we know, Allahumma azza al-Islam wal-Muslimin wa adhilla shirka wal-Mushrikeen Okay, and I want to know if that is a problem in itself. Would that be a problem to say that? Are we able to say something negative about the kuffar, or is that not allowed?
See, kufr is the most or the worst crime that can ever be committed on the face of earth.
Yes.
To disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to associate partners with Allah. This is a crime, right? But what do we do with this crime is that we call others to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with kindness and so on. But we hate kufr, we hate disbelievers and so on, because this is something that it's a crime being committed. And this is a matter of choice. We choose to be like this. It's not something that would cause us to be unjust or to cause harm to others. Definitely not. So definitely a Muslim would want for the goodness to prevail, for the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be there in the life of people, and for matters of shirk and associating partners with Allah, and those who are idol worshippers and those who worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to be superior, of course, definitely.
Barakallahu feek. A sister, she's a new Muslim, and she's asking if a woman is on her monthly period, what type of ibadah is not allowed? Can one recite Quran, make dua, etc.?
No. The ulama, they say, as it's clearly mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that it's not permissible, of course, for a woman in her menses to make salah, to fast. She make up the days of fasting, but she doesn't make up the salah. It's not permissible to make tawaf on the Kaaba. But it's not permissible to touch the Quran and to hold it and to recite from it like this. But if she recites without touching the Quran, that's fine. And that's why if she's reciting from a translated copy of the Quran that has Arabic in it, that's fine. Or that has tafsir on the side, that's fine.
You mean a translated copy that has Arabic, meaning
Yes.
it has both Arabic and another language?
Right. Why? Because most of what is written, it's not the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then she can recite Quran from it. The issue of touching is what is not permissible.
That would go for an Islamic book also that may include some ayat or some ahadith.
Or books of tafsir, or even the Quran itself, if she does not touch it or flip the pages and so on, then she can recite. So reciting, there's no harm whatsoever if she's in her menses. And everything else is permissible. It's only the salah and the tawaf and fasting.
Jazakallah khairan. A related question, actually, Sister Amina is saying, if a woman is in a time where she's not praying, can she make sujood al-shukr?
Sujood al-shukr, especially sujood al-shukr, the ulama, they said, you don't have to be in wudu if you make sujood al-shukr. Sujood al-shukr meaning that you are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you heard something, a great news, that you need to prostrate, make sujood immediately. So since it's to be done immediately, that means you don't have to think whether you are in wudu or not. You don't even have to face the qibla. You just think for a second, or less than a second, where's the qibla? You don't have to ask. You don't ask people, where's the qibla? I need to make sujood al-shukr. Then it doesn't serve the purpose of sujood al-shukr. Sujood al-shukr is such a way that you receive a great news, you fall prostrate immediately, whether you are in wudu or not, and so on. So this is something that is permissible to be done without being in state of wudu.
Jazakallah khair. There's kind of an embarrassing question, but I think it will also be a benefit to our sisters, and that's why we want to ask it. And it's mentioned here by Sister Sarah. She says that her wedding day falls under what would normally be her period.
Right.
So she's wondering if you can give her some advice on what she should do, practically speaking.
Right. They should change, if they can, the time, so that it doesn't create any inconvenience for both of them. If not, then if it happened, she doesn't have to say that beforehand, but if it happened in the day, because sometimes things changes, right? Then she can, the matter would to be explained to the husband, and of course he has to have the understanding, and as it's a fact, everything is permissible except when it comes to the intercourse and so on.
What if there's kind of like some sort of an embarrassment, to tell the other party, or they're not as close, they're not very close yet? Right. Would it be allowed for her to change her period?
Take a pill or something?
Yeah, take a pill in order to do that.
Taking the pills, as long as it's not harmful, then there's no harm. But if she does that, it's no problem. She would be able to assess the situation better. But this is a normal thing in one's life, and people would see that as a normal thing, and it's not something that it shouldn't be a matter of being embarrassment and so on. But if she chooses to take the pill and it's not a harmful one, then that's fine.
Barakallah feek. Sister Sadia, she's saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. She says, one of my relatives is a diabetic patient since she was 12 years old. She's on insulin and she's in her mid-40s right now. She has a urinary problem every now and then, even though she sneezes, even when she sneezes, laughs, or any other task, she passes urine. Her clothes, become full of, not full, but they have some urine in them. So what is the solution for this? Does she have to again and again change her clothes and make wudu again and again?
If this is a case where she is sick, she is having no control when it comes to getting out the urine, if this is the case, because sometimes it's just once in a while it happens. If it's once in a while, she cleans herself and she has to make normal wudu and so on. But if this is a sickness and it's too much, then in that case, this is called, salas al-bawl. I'm not sure exactly the scientific name in English.
Me neither.
Right. But what to be done is that she needs to make wudu for every salah. Once the time of the salah enters and she cleans herself and she makes wudu, then she goes make salah. Anything that happens while she's making wudu till the end of the salah does not harm her salah whatsoever. So she just, but then she has to make wudu for every salah she prays. She cannot pray Asr with the wudu of Dhuhr. She has to make the wudu for every salah. But if something comes down during the salah, then she should not get out of the salah or does not invalidate the salah. If this is a sickness.
How about if, for example, she makes wudu now and she's about to start salah and something?
She should not recognize that, meaning that she can continue the salah normally. Again, if the doctor would say that this is a sickness or this is something that comes out without any control of her.
Sister Dels is saying, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to know if using fake nails would be haram, similar to using false hair.
With the fake nails, again, if it's not to be shown in front of strangers and so on, if it's only in front of the husband or whatever, there's no evidence that this is something that is not permissible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But again, only in front of those who are mahram and not in front of those who are strangers to her.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. Sister Zainab is asking a question that a lot of sisters deal with. It says, please, is it compulsory for a young unmarried lady to wear socks before going out? I'm not sure why he specified a young unmarried lady. May Allah guide us to the straight path. Would it be required to wear socks? Some people don't consider the feet as part of the awrah. They can be fully covered from the top, whether they're wearing face veil or not. But when it comes to the feet, they can be wearing sandals, for example.
Feet is awrah. Feet for women is awrah and should be covered. Does she have to wear socks? If it's covered, she doesn't have to wear socks. The issue is not about socks. It's about to cover the feet. So when it comes to the attire that people wear nowadays, definitely the socks is something that has to be there. But the point is that the foot has to be covered when she's outside.
And you said also that's required during prayer.
During prayer, when she's standing. Why she's standing? If she is in sujood and the bottom of the foot shows, there's no harm.
But if she's standing, there has to be covered.
Yes.
The entire thing has to be covered. MashaAllah. All right. I think we ran out of questions that we received on Facebook from our sisters. But if we can go back to, I think, a very important issue. All these issues, all these fiqh issues that we talked about in this segment when it comes to the women-related issues, really pours into the issue of taqwa. Of sisters, having consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you can cut corners with many of the things that we talked about if you don't have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No.
And you can avoid most of these things very easily if you develop the concept of taqwa in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No. Very good and very important point. And that leads us to the understanding that what is the goal? The goal is to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So it makes the concern what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Not that I would just get the bare minimum of something or this or that. No, I want to know exactly what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I know for sure that this is for my benefit in this life and in the hereafter, because He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. So this level of submission once it's there, and exalting the words of Allah and having the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it doesn't mean also that she would do always doing what is safe, on the safe side, or the extremist view. Nobody would ever say that, but to do what is right, and to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, and to step over our desires when it comes to be against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And to remember the great reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world and in the hereafter.
Right, and many of the things, or some of the things that we do and we see in the religion of Islam, doesn't have to be necessarily for ourselves, but for others. Right, you are prohibited for you to extend your hand and take something from someone else without their permission, although you like it, and it tastes good or whatever. But this is haram for you to do that. And that's the same thing when it comes to the relationship between men and women and many things like this. But we don't have to actually get to know the details of the wisdom behind all of these things. It's enough for us to know that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us.
Inshallah, barakallahu feek. The relationship between men and women is something that we keep talking about over and over again, but it still keeps coming up. A lot of questions that we keep getting are talking about this issue. What are really the limits between men and women, especially in a society that really has become globalized in terms of communication between all parts of society?
The limits is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, what's in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and how it was implemented at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. This does not change over time. Things can change, but this type of relationships and the limits, it doesn't change. So when it comes to what do we dress, when it comes to the hijab and the proper also attire of the men, the issue of free mixing, it's not permissible in Islam, the issue of free mixing. Whether workplaces are different now or not, but this is not something that we have unique rulings when it comes to the religion of Islam to protect us from the evil within our own selves. For again, if we talk about the wisdom, for the rights of the children, for the rights of having a strong household and families and so on. But the women, the men in their life are those who are mahram to her. Other than that, she has no business to do anything with them unless it's a necessity, a judge buying and selling, something that is a necessity of life. Other than that, she has the environment within the Muslim sisters, the communities and so on. And we see even in the masjid where the women, they pray separate from the men. The same thing in all of our life, it should be the same way.
Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. Actually, we're receiving more questions as we speak on Facebook. So let me go ahead and read a few more new questions that we've been getting. Sister Tabassum says, Assalamu alaikum. I read somewhere that saying MashaAllah, Tabarakallah while praising something or someone is a bid'ah. Please clarify and explain, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair.
I never heard that this is something that is bid'ah. It's to, when you see something you like, yes, you can say MashaAllah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And this is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. And there's nothing, when you talk about bid'ah or innovation in the religion of Islam, has to do something with a matter of ibadah that has a ritual to it. So this is not a thing that is to be said in a ritual form. You just say something as a way of praising it. Or when you see something you like, mashallah, this is absolutely fine.
Jazakallah khair. Also, we have a question from Sister Zinat. She's asking about the time for Salat al-Istikhara. Is it after Fajr or after Isha or at any time?
Salat al-Istikhara, as the Prophet ﷺ said, you pray 2 rak'ah. If you have a concern, you pray 2 rak'ah other than the Fard Salah. So whether it's a Sunnah prayer, Sunnah al-Fajr can be also prayed as Istikhara, and after you finish the Salah, you make the dua of al-Istikhara. Sunnah al-Dhuhr, before or after. Any 2 rak'ah that you would pray, but to be prayed in the times when it's permissible for us to pray. So you should not pray it after Fajr, you should not pray it after Asr al-Maghrib. But if you enter the masjid, for example, and you have to pray the 2 rak'ah before you sit down, and this was after Asr, then you can make that as Istikhara Salah. So it's any 2 rak'ah, during the night or during the day, other than the Fard Salah can be Salatul Istikhara.
Barakallah feek. And our final question for this afternoon, inshallah, is from Sister Siham. And she is saying, is it important to have a Quran teacher with an ijazah? And how do you go about deciding on a Quran teacher in terms of tajweed, memorization? What is important to look for and to avoid? And also your opinion about learning tajweed through online programs.
No. definitely it's the best for the Quran teacher to be as perfect as he can or she can, with ijazah, of course, because this is how the Quran came to us from one generation to the other. If not, then a person should do the best they can to learn from whatever means permissible, and one of which is if it's online, especially for those who are in environments where they don't have many teachers, it's fine, as long as, again, men are teaching men and women are teaching women. This is something that should be kept this way. MashaAllah, I hear there are many women that have ijazah and they give that through online too. So, you know, doing some effort to do that. If you don't have, definitely the physical relationship between the teacher and the student is the best. But if you can't do that, then don't avoid the learning whatsoever. Just do the best you can, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for this very enlightening and interesting episode of Dear Sisters. Again, like always, we go everywhere, but at the same time, we come back to more knowledge, alhamdulillah. I mean, we always, I mean, imagine, as a man, I learn a lot from this program, so I can only imagine what the sisters are learning, alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward, inshallah. Barakallah feek. Sisters from all around the world, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of your program, Dear Sisters. Inshallah, we will see you in a future program. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives.